Right, so hello and welcome back to Books and Things and welcome to another video, and today I'm joined by Nick.
Hello.
And we're going to be chatting about Agatha Christie. So I did a sort of Anthony Trollope check-in video last October, which I think people enjoyed. So I thought I would do kind of the same with Agatha Christie in terms of talking about like where I'm up to with reading Agatha Christie. And I thought we would bring Nick along because we've been listening to a lot of the Poirot series together on audiobook, which is great fun. So I thought we would start off by sort of just going through the Poirot books that we've read so far and the other Agatha Christie books that we've read. You have mostly read Poirot, haven't you?
I've read one Miss Marple and then there were none, and I think otherwise it's all Poirot.
Yeah. So we're up to number 25 now in Poirot.
Oh, that's quite good.
Which is pretty good. We have 14 left.
14 left, yeah.
So I guess there are 39. Yeah. So the Poirot books we've read so far, be prepared for a long list. The Mysterious Affair of Styles, Murder on the Links, Poirot Investigates, which is a short story collection, The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, The Big Four, The Mystery of the Blue Train. I have read that twice. I read it years and years ago. I think, in fact, that was the first Agatha Christie I ever read. And then we listened to it while we were going through Agatha Christie in order. Black Coffee, which is a play. Did you read Black Coffee? No, you haven't read Black Coffee. You should do. It was good.
It's on my list.
It was good. Peril at End House, Lord Edgware Dies, Murder on the Orient Express. I have read that twice. Again, it was one I read before I was sort of like actively working through Poirot books. 3-Act Tragedy, I've also read twice. Death in the Clouds, The A.B.C. Murders, I've also read twice. Murder in Mesopotamia, Cards on the Table, Murder in the Mews, which is another short story collection, Dumb Witness, Death on the Nile, Appointment with Death, Hercule Poirot's Christmas, Sad Cypress, 1-2 Buckle My Shoe, which I've also read twice, Evil Under the Sun, 5 Little Pigs, and The Hollow, which we just finished. So lots of Poirot books. And then I've also read bits and pieces of other works of Agatha Christie. So we've been mostly focused on Poirot and we've been working our way through Poirot in order over the last few years, but I have also read the first 5 Miss Marples, so Murder at the Vicarage, The Body in the Library, The Moving Finger, A Murder is Announced, and They Do It with Mirrors. You've also read Murder in the Vicarage.
Yeah, just Murder in the Vicarage.
Yeah, which you didn't like so much.
Well, we'll talk about it.
Yeah. Then I've also read the first 2 Tommy and Tuppence books, so The Secret Adversary and Partners in Crime, which is a short story collection. And I've read some of the like other detective books, the detectives that Agatha Christie like occasionally wrote about. So The Man in the Brown Suit, which includes Colonel Race, and then the 2 Superintendent Battle books, The Secrets of Chimneys and The Seven Dials Mystery. And then I've also read 4 standalones, The Sitterford Mystery, And Then There Were None, Cricket House, and Why Didn't They Ask Evans? And Then There Were None I've read twice, and it's very, very good. And you
I've
read
also
that too.
read it.
Yeah, we listened to that together. So those are all the Agatha Christie books I've read, which is quite a lot. So I have read 39 books by Agatha Christie, and 7 of them I've read twice. So I think Agatha Christie is my second most read author after Anthony Trollope, and she will overtake Anthony Trollope at some point because she wrote more books than Anthony Trollope. So I thought we would have a quick chat about like why we like Agatha Christie, and pick out some of our favourite Agatha Christie books so far. I mean, she must be one of your most read authors too.
I would be very surprised. I mean, I don't track it like you do,
Yeah.
but I would be very surprised if there's another author who I've read more books by, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, you've read, so you hadn't read Black Coffee, but otherwise, so you've read 24 Poirot books and then 1 Miss Marple and 1 standalone, I think.
Yeah, I think probably my most read author before this would have been like whoever wrote like Delta Request, because I loved those as a kid and there were like 15 of them or something. But no, I can't think. I think it's extremely unlikely that I've read anywhere close to the same number by any other individual author.
And I think one thing I really like about Agatha Christie is that her books are all quite short, which means it does feel very easy to like get through a lot of them. Like I feel like if thinking about reading 39 books by another author feels daunting in a way that it just doesn't with Agatha Christie. Like we've been listening to most of them on audiobook, and most of the audiobooks are like 6 or 7 hours long. When I do read Agatha Christie physically, which I don't that much anymore, it only takes me, I guess 3 hours maybe. Like they're just quite short, consumable books.
Consumable is the word, I think. They're very, digestible. They're no longer than they need to be. They're very to the point, and she's very good at like setting things up very quickly. Like there's not a lot of fluff, I think.
Yeah, and they're quite tight.
Yeah.
And very dialogue heavy as well, which means they kind of flow fast as well. And I think Agatha Christie works really well on audiobook. The vast majority of Agatha Christie I've read, I've listened to, and all of the Poirot books except for Black Coffee, which is a play. All of the rest of them we've listened to together on audiobook. Usually the audiobook's narrated by Hugh Fraser, who is very, very good.
Yeah, I think most of them are Hugh Fraser, who I think played Hastings in the ITV adaptation.
Yeah.
Then the famous ones all get narrated by David Suchet.
Who is less good.
He is less good.
Yeah, just much less good. He's a very good actor, but I think as a voice actor, Hugh Fraser is just miles better.
I think he actually has a less good Poirot voice than Hugh Fraser, even though he played Poirot, which is a little bit embarrassing for David Suchet.
Yeah. But yeah, I think there's been one or two others that were narrated by other people, but
Murder in Mesopotamia was narrated by someone else. I can't remember what she was called.
But yeah, the Poirot ones, a lot of them are narrated by Hugh Fraser, who is very, very good. And so we quite like listening to Poirot together, and we often listen to Poirot audiobooks like on holiday or if we have a long drive. And they're quite fun to listen to together because they're not too long, so they're quite like manageable to listen to together, and also then we can theorise together. And or compete with our theories. Usually we theorise together, unless like every now and then if one of us has a very strong theory, then we write it down and keep it secret and see who wins. Which doesn't happen that often. I did guess Appointment with Death, and I was very proud of myself.
I mean, that was unnerving. You just wrote the entire plot of the second half of the novel.
Yeah. Well, I guess the culprit, but I also guessed like all of the I spotted all of the clues in a way that I just don't usually do with Agatha Christie, so that was very satisfying.
It was like sitting down to play Cluedo with someone and they just immediately turn in their card and win. It's very annoying.
That's what happens when I play Cluedo.
I know. That's why we don't play Cluedo.
I also think Agatha Christie is a real genius for character. Like, I feel like her characters are so complex, so interesting, so well developed, and so like deftly created. I feel like she's very good at just, here are 2 lines about this character and you have a really strong impression of them. And for someone who wrote so many books and has so many characters, that is quite impressive.
She understands the psychology, as Poirot would say. I think she has got an absolute a genius is the right word for not just like caricatures but sort of archetypes. Like, she really nails people down very quickly, but manages to keep them sufficiently like 3-dimensional that they're never just like the evil stepmother or something. There's always an extra bit that keeps you guessing. And they're just very real. Like, you absolutely believe in all her characters, even if most of them are awful.
Yeah, but I think that's why her mysteries work so well as well, is because her characters feel so real. Therefore, I always believe the motivation of the killer or whatever. Like, therefore, I just always believe it because she has created her characters so well. And I think that is, like, actually what makes a good murder mystery is not the plot, actually, so much as the characters and how you can pull them together.
Yeah, and I think she's got a real... Some of hers are very like, oh, there was this sort of mechanism or thing that you didn't understand. Someone did something in a way that you didn't expect. Like jumped out a window or something. I don't think everyone does jump out a window, but but a lot of them are psychological, and actually, it kind of, there's so much sort of background noise and other people doing things that they're not supposed to, or sort of trying to cover things up, or having their own theories that are wrong but sort of muddy the scene. And actually Agatha Christie loves just throwing things at you that actually distract you from the central mystery, and you think that they're taking you in one direction, but actually they're taking you away from sort of the actual culprit.
And I think she's very good too for all of her red herrings being subplots. Like, it's never just a red herring. If it's a red herring, it's also a fully developed subplot that's quite interesting in its own right as well, which I think is another, like, something I really value in them.
I think I almost never guess Agatha Christie's sort of solutions. I think I guessed one in the sort of however many Poirot books we've read. But you usually work something out. So you get to feel clever, and then there's a little bit where it's revealed, and you're like, yes, I knew that. I'd already figured that out. And then Poirot explains why you're still a moron. But,
you guess one person's secret, but you don't guess the whole mystery.
So it's kind of perfect for a mystery in that you will have guessed some of it, so you feel clever, but there's also still more that you don't understand, so you still want to find out what's going on. So there's a lot. I think most people will not figure out the whole thing. So there'll always be something for them to keep reading for.
But you'll make some progress, which makes you feel satisfied as a reader, which I think is really valuable. So what have your favourite Agatha Christie's been?
Agatha Christie's, not just Poirot's.
I mean, I've written a list. I've come prepared. I didn't get you to write a list.
Okay, so on the spot. How many are on your list? How many should I have in my favourite?
So there are 10 on my list.
10.
I have read more than you, so you don't have to come up with 10 if you don't want to.
No.
You've read a lot of the ones on my 10, but not all of them.
Yeah, let's see. Let's do a top 5, I think. I would say, in no particular order, And Then There Were None, which is the only standalone I've read, but it is brilliant.
Yeah.
Really, really good. I actually saw an adaptation of that before I read it, which is also really good. The BBC did one.
But
like
even
10 years
knowing
ago.
everything.
Even knowing
But
exactly
still,
what was
yeah.
happening,
Yeah.
it's still really good. And it's just really chilling,
Yeah.
actually.
It's such a thriller. And I thought that actually when we were, because we listened to it together and I had already read it, you hadn't read it, but you'd seen the adaptation, and actually, like, even on a reread, knowing everything is just so good. It's just so tense, and it's just such a great book.
And then probably the A.B.C. murders, which is quite different. It's kind of more of a thriller, I suppose, than
Yeah.
a proper mystery. And I'd also seen an adaptation of that before I read it, which I have slightly more mixed feelings about, to be honest. But I think the book is massively better than the adaptation that I saw, and it's very psychological, and it's not so much about working out what's going on as just sort of being taken on this sort of adventure's probably the wrong word, but yeah, and I feel like the characters are really, really good, like really good. I really enjoyed that one. And then I think the other 3, it's quite a difficult one. I mean, it's a bit cliche to say Murder on the Orient Express, but Murder on the Orient Express is really good.
Yeah.
I feel like I did solve that one beforehand, but I'm also reasonably confident that someone must have told me the solution to the Murder on the Orient Express beforehand. So I haven't given myself credit for that, but I felt really satisfied, and I actually worked out what was going on-ish just before it sort of all came out, and it just had a great ending. I think it's one of a really satisfying ending. Then the other 2 are quite difficult because there's quite a lot of the ones we've listened to recently have been really good.
Yeah.
I think probably The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. I slightly struggled to click with it while we were reading it, but it's such a clever one that I think it's probably the best.
It is really, really
yeah.
good. I think we listened to that quite early on in our way through Poirot, and we didn't listen to it as fast as most of the other ones we've listened to, like over a week or less, like often while we're away or whatever. Whereas I think that one we just listened to like in bits and pieces, which meant we probably didn't have like the best reading experience of it. But it is great.
Yeah. And then probably Death on the Nile.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say
probably
that.
Death on the Nile, which I think is another very cliche one. I think if you've got 10, a few honourable mentions. I think probably 3-Act Tragedy, which I quite enjoyed, and Cards on the Table, which is particularly fun because it's kind of like an Avengers Assemble for Agatha Christie characters. I actually liked Evil Under the Sun as well. I thought that was quite clever.
Yeah. Let me. What did I put on my list? Quite a few of the ones you've mentioned. So I put at number 10. I put Murder Is an Ounce, which is the only Marple one I've got on my list. In general, I haven't enjoyed Miss Marple as much.
I didn't really like the one that we listened to. It was, no, I didn't really click with it, to be honest. It didn't...
I didn't have the best audiobook narrator, which I don't think helped.
It was quite bad.
Yeah, but I think in general, I found when I've read the Miss Marple books, I like them, but I just don't love them as much as Poirot. Miss Marple tends to be a less important character than Poirot is in his. Not always. Poirot sometimes takes a step back too, but I feel like, therefore, you don't know Miss Marple as well. Murder Is an Ounce is really fun, though, and I really enjoyed that one. That's definitely my favourite Miss Marple by quite a long way. Then I have put at number 9, The Hollow, which is a Poirot run. We only just finished this, so this may be recency bias, but I just thought The Hollow was really great. It's a country house murder mystery and like some awful, horrible characters who are quite fun to watch.
I think The Hollow has some of the best characters. And some very interesting stuff. I did enjoy it. I think I won't say too much because I don't want to spoil anything for anyone. But I think it was the sort of mystery it was a little bit too similar to one of the other earlier ones that we read. Not really in content, just in terms of Agatha Christie's strategy in the book. Maybe is the best way of putting it.
But I did think it was really good.
It was really good. I think that's true. Yeah.
Then at number 8, I put another one we read pretty recently, Five Little Pigs, which I really liked, where Poirot is kind of looking back on a cold case. Well, not a cold case, a case that was solved and someone went to trial for 16 years ago, but now the woman's daughter comes back, doesn't believe that her mother really killed her father and wants to know the truth. And I thought that one was really good. It has a very different like structure to it, which I just really liked.
I think I liked the mystery more than I liked the structure, to be honest. But it was good. I did like it.
Yeah. At number 7, I put standalone Crooked House, which you've yet to read, which I think is really good. So I think we should listen to that one sometime. Crooked House is a great, very atmospheric, tense one. Another quite dark, sinister standalone. Works very well. At number 6, I put The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, because it is fantastic, as we've said. At number 5, I put Cards on the Table, because that is really, really good. And like Nick said, it's a bit of a Avengers Assemble of Agatha Christie characters. So we have Poirot as this kind of central detective, but we also have Colonel Race and Superintendent Battle, who we've met in, well, I had read other books with them in before, so that was very fun. And then it also has Ariadne Oliver in, who we haven't read in any other books, but I gather she is in quite a few Poirot books, so I guess they must all be further on.
I think also because she seems pretty clearly to be a, like, Agatha Christie self-insert, so it is just quite fun that Agatha Christie put herself into one of her own murder mysteries to be one of the detectives.
But also in not that flattering a way either, like it's just quite entertaining. So Ariadne Oliver has written a series about a Finnish detective and she doesn't know anything about Finland and everyone keeps on telling her this, which is obviously a reference to Agatha Christie and Poirot. I gather Ariadne Oliver does turn up again, and I suppose she's such a like interesting, fun character that even if she's only like in one other Poirot book, I think she still feels like quite a problem. I like her a lot. Then number 4, I have another standalone, which is Why Didn't They Ask Evans, which again I think we should listen to together. Really, really enjoyed that one. Thought it was great, really good, solid standalone. Really fun. Less dark than some of the other standalones, but just like really enjoyable. And then number 3, I have Death on the Nile, because it is fantastic. At number 2, I've put Murder on the Orient Express. And then at number 1, I have put And Then There Were None, which I do think is my favourite Agatha Christie.
I think it's probably the best one.
It's just really, really good.
It's chilling. I think in a really, it's quite different to. I mean, I've really only read Poirot and One Miss Marple. Other than that, but it is very tonally. It's just massively darker. Like, I don't really think that falls into the category of cozy crime, to be honest.
No, not at all. And Crooked House is quite dark as well. I think some of her standalones are quite different tonally. And I mean, even some of the Poirots are sort of darker than others. And I think one thing I like about Agatha Christie is that she is obviously very versatile. And although she wrote a lot of books, and as we said with The Hollow, every now and then she does not repeat things, but every now and then you can see books that echo on from other books, as I often find with Anthony Trollope or other authors who I've read a lot by. Sometimes you do notice patterns, but at the same time I do think she's also quite versatile and her character's always so rich and so different.
To be honest, given the number of books she wrote, it's actually quite impressive how little you see the patterns, to be honest. Yeah,
in fact, to be honest, having read a similar amount of Agatha Christie and Anthony Trollope is more of a repeater of plots and plot structures than Agatha Christie is, which, considering Agatha Christie writes, well, at least the Agatha Christie we've read, I haven't read any of her Mary Westmacott books, but Agatha Christie writes murder mysteries where you think it would in a way be more likely that you'd repeat plots or patterns than Anthony Trollope, who writes more varied things in some ways, but he does love to repeat a plot. But there we go. I still like his books a lot. But yeah, Agatha Christie is very versatile, I think.
Yeah, extremely versatile. And I think actually one of the things that's interesting, I think you touched on it earlier, is just in the Poirot series, how different the different Poirot books are, down to how much Poirot is actually in them.
Yeah.
So you do see, I think, patterns and repetition of in some of the books. It is very much Poirot is solving a mystery, and particularly the early ones. You mainly follow that. But then in a lot of them, it's actually another character sort of wandering around, with Poirot just popping up occasionally to say something cryptic and then wander out and then either sort of reveal the whole thing at the end, or in fact he's just sort of there. Yeah, he doesn't really solve the Hollow so much as he's sort of investigating it as events unfold. And I think that is quite interesting to see Agatha Christie playing around with these different structures.
So the first few Poirot books, the first couple are from Hastings' perspective, Poirot's friend, and it has that kind of like Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Watson feel to it. But actually, Agatha Christie kind of gets rid of Hastings quite quickly. He does come back for a few books later on in the series.
Well, I think she's clearly quite influenced, probably is the right word, by Conan Doyle and Sherlock Holmes, in that obviously, Sherlock Holmes is probably the most famous fictional detective by quite a margin, do we think?
Ever? Certainly at the time when Agatha Christie was writing, but yes.
I think he's the most famous fictional.
Yeah,
I mean, who would be more famous?
Well, Poirot, but yeah,
I don't. Yeah, so I think I would say probably Poirot is the second most famous fictional detective.
You're probably right,
I would be less confident in saying that, but I feel reasonably sure. Certainly in the UK, I think Poirot is definitely the most famous after Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe Inspector Morse or someone. I don't know. But I think. I'm not saying that Sherlock Holmes is the only famous literary detective, but I can't think of another literary detective who comes even close to being like globally as famous as Sherlock Holmes. And Agatha Christie is obviously kind of very interested in Sherlock Holmes, but also kind of doesn't seem to think not that they're not very good, but she's obviously trying to do something quite different.
Yeah.
And I think in the second Poirot book, which I think is Murder on the Links. There is a French detective
who is obviously a Sherlock Holmes joke.
Who is absolutely a stand-in for Sherlock Holmes, and Poirot just makes fun of him all the time, and it is actually very funny. And then she starts with like the Holmes-Watson dynamic with Poirot and Hastings, and Hastings is, as you know, probably
as bumbling as Watson, if not more bumbling.
I think he's probably slightly more useful. Like, I feel like it's amazing how little Watson does in any Sherlock Holmes story. Like, basically, Watson has no bearing on like 99% of what happens in Sherlock Holmes. Whereas I don't think that's quite true for Hastings. Yeah. But she obviously dumps Hastings quite quickly as well, and wants to move past that sort of detective sidekick dynamic.
Yeah, and I think having quite a different structure, like quite a lot of the different books have a different structure, as you said, Poirot's in them different amounts. I think that works quite well for kind of keeping the series fresh and keeping the books different. In quite a few of the Poirot books, Poirot is not the main character, and I think giving us another main character, another way into the story, is quite helpful a lot of the time, and means that it doesn't get repetitive. You know, quite often we listen to several Poirot books like back to back, and really enjoy doing that still. Yeah,
because I think the Big Four, which is one of the earlier ones, is an attempt to do like a proper Sherlock Holmes story. Like, in fact, it's probably closest something like The Sign of the Four in Sherlock Holmes, like an adventure. More than a mystery, which actually a lot of the Sherlock Holmes stories are actually adventures rather than mysteries. But it really doesn't work, to be honest. I think it's comfortably the worst one we've read.
Is that your least favourite Agatha Christie?
I think it is. I do also have a specific dislike of Lord Edgware Dies, but that's because I feel like Agatha Christie betrayed me and I haven't forgiven her yet. But I won't say any more because it would spoil it. But I still think that's a much better book than the Big Four, which I just don't think really works.
Yeah, and I think... so my actual least favourite Agatha Christie is The Man in the Brown Suit, which I didn't really get on with at all. That's one of the books with Colonel Racing, and that is also an adventure more than a mystery. I also don't love The Secret Adversary, which is the first Tommy and Tuppence book. I liked the second one more. I did quite like it, but that is also an adventure one. I don't think you would like that as much. And I think in general... some of her books are more adventure, some of her books are more mystery, some of her books are more thriller, and I think I love the mysteries and I love the thrillers, but the kind of more adventure ones I tend to get on with a little bit less well. So I guess the final thing I wanted to talk about is like what we read next. So we've got 14 Poirot books left. The next one is a short story collection actually, which I don't tend to love as much, but we've got The Labours of Hercules, which is a fun name for a short story collection about Hercule Poirot.
Well, you quite liked Murder on the Mews, didn't you?
Yeah, I liked Murder on the Mews more than Poirot Investigates, I think the first one was called. Murder in the Mews was better.
Yeah, I don't remember much about Poirot Investigates.
Yeah, they were fine. They were more Sherlock Holmesy actually, but I didn't love them as much. In general, I think Sir Arthur Conan Doyle is better at short stories than novels, but I think Agatha Christie is better at novels than short stories. And then I do think we should listen to together Cricket House and Why Didn't They Ask Evans, because I do think those are great and I think you'd really enjoy them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we've got Why Didn't They Ask Evans out of the library at the moment, so we should read that one.
Yeah, and actually there are a lot more standalones I would like to read, like thinking about it, I haven't actually read very many standalones, and like quite a lot of standalones would make up my favourite Agatha Christie's, so I think I should read more of them. Oh, where would you recommend starting with Agatha Christie, do you think? At the beginning of Poirot?
So I would say that it's been really rewarding reading them in publication order. Yeah. And actually it's been quite interesting because obviously she started writing in the 20s.
Yeah, 20s, very early 20s.
And we've just got to, I think The Hollow is the first book that was written after the Second World War.
Yeah, so we've done like 25 years of Agatha Christie.
But also it's just fascinating to see like the world change as Agatha Christie writes it, which I think is quite cool. And kind of it change and it not change. I think specifically Poirot failing to die, even though the fact that he's like 70 in the first book.
And I think the first Poirot book, The Mysterious Affair at Styles, is really good. Like, it wouldn't be a favourite, but I did really enjoy it, and I think it's a good introduction to Hastings and Poirot. It kind of sets you up to go forward.
I think it is rewarding to do it that way. I do think The Mysterious Affair at Styles is not one of her best. Like, it's fine, and it kind of... It does showcase some of the things that are good about Poirot, but I didn't love it. And I think, actually, I would almost say start with one of the classics and then go back to the beginning. Once you've really seen what's coming and how good it is.
Yeah, like Murder on the Orient Express.
So I do really... Murder on the Orient Express, I feel like, is almost better built up to.
Yeah.
I would say something like Murder in Mesopotamia or... I'm trying to think of another one. Actually, The Murder of Roger Ackroyd's not a bad one to start with. Or maybe you...
I don't know. I think that one's better because that's not from Poirot or Hastings' perspective. And I kind of feel like you're better knowing Poirot before you read that.
What about... I mean, the A.B.C. murders wouldn't be a terrible one to start with. I think Evil Under the Sun or Three Little Pigs...
Five Little Pigs.
Sorry.
I keep calling it Three Little Pigs as well.
1, 2 Buckle My Shoe, Peril at End House, like there's quite a lot of... Or Death in the Clouds. Actually, I think Death in the Clouds is not the best Agatha Christie, but it's a very solid one.
Yeah. Solid introduction.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't start with Cards on the Table because that isn't fun unless you've read Poirot before.
I would actually say Death in the Clouds or Dumb Witness, which are both...
Oh, Dumb Witness was good.
Really solid. We enjoyed them. You're not sort of reading the best ones that sort of play around with Poirot as a character before he's been sort of fully established in your mind. But you do get a real sense of how good the mysteries can be and how satisfying they can be.
Yeah.
And then you go back and work your way through. Alternatively, read And Then There Went On, because that is an absolutely... I mean, it's the only one other than Miss Marple that I have read, but that is an absolutely standout book. And if you read no other Agatha Christie, you'd still have a pretty good time with it.
Yeah, and I'd say actually Crooked House and Why Didn't They Ask Evans are good introductions to Agatha Christie's writing as well. And in a way, maybe it's good to read a standalone, see what you think of her writing before you go into the Poirot series, because I do think, like we said, it is really satisfying to read the Poirot books in order. That has been really fun, but maybe it is nice to...
I don't think you would have to, though.
No, I don't think you'd have to. I think if you want to read them all, it's nice to do them in order, but if you're just going to read 5, then don't read the first 5 because they're not the 5 best.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. I think just Google like best Agatha Christie's and you'll get the standard list, like Death on the Nile, Murder on the Express, etc.
Yeah.
And probably Murder about Roger Ackroyd is in there as well, I'd have thought. I think, like Katie says, the problem with doing it that way is if you read the 5 best Poirots, none of the other Poirots will seem quite as good in comparison. So just bear that in mind, that you might then not really want to go back and read all of them quite so much. To be honest, almost any of the books you could pick up and have a reasonably good time with, other than the Big Four. Don't read the Big Four. Skip it, it's not very good. And I wouldn't bother with Miss Marple either, but I have only read the
You've
first
already
one.
read one. A Murderer's Announced is really good. We'll read that sometime.
I'm going to spring a question on you.
Oh, all right.
Favourite Agatha Christie character?
Just Poirot.
Just Poirot. Other than Poirot.
Who else do I like?
Yeah, sorry. When I say favourite character, it doesn't have to be someone you like. It can be someone you hate, but in a satisfying way.
I mean, it was very satisfying to despise John Christo in The Hollow. He is the worst. I do also really like the 2 main characters in Why Didn't They Ask Evans? Frankie and I've forgotten the man's name. But they're both really fun. I also do quite like Superintendent Battle, who's in a couple of books which are like good but not the best, and then he's also in Cards on the Table. I really like Ariadne Oliver. I'm excited to see more of her. Let me have a quick check of the books as well. I think the characterisation in Death on the Nile was really, really good as well. I think that's all off the top of my head. Do you have favourites?
I can't remember her name. I think the nurse in Murder in Mesopotamia I like.
Yeah, she's good.
I really do like Mr. Ferguson in Death on the Nile as well. I think he's a great character. It's very funny when Agatha Christie's having fun, sort of skewering particular types of people.
Yeah.
And actually, having just read it, Lady Angatel in The Hollow is also a great character.
Yeah. So many great characters.
She might be my favourite, actually.
Cool. So I think that's any last thoughts, Agatha Christie.
She's just a genius.
Yeah.
I think probably the best writer of the 20th century. Discuss.
Yeah, maybe.
That's
Pretty
probably
great.
controversial, but let us know in the comments who actually is the best writer of the 20th century.
Yeah.
But,
So maybe it's Agatha Christie.
but maybe it is Agatha Christie.
All right, that is all for now. Thank you very much for watching. Let us know down in the comments if you like Agatha Christie and what you've read by her, and if you have any favourite Agatha Christie books that we have yet to read.
Or least favourite.
Or least favourite indeed, yeah. And yeah, that's all for now, and I'll be back very soon with another bookish video.